See, he's having this conversation with us now because we're about to be huge. No, he makes fun of me because I will often say, I don't want to deal with the fame. I don't want these problems. And here I am with no fame, no problems. But in my mind, those will be problems.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I think I'm the wrong person to be doing this because I really don't want to have to deal with any of that. Taking pictures with people will be fine. I know that that's a long way down the road, whether that even happens or whatever. Blah, 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 blah. But that is not something for someone who doesn't want to be famous to try to do a podcast is kind of like that doesn't add up. But I don't know, for some reason.
I have no doubt in my mind that you are going to experience having fame someday, whether you like it or not. Because of the level of your intelligence at such a young age and your acumen for entrepreneurial spirit is there. So you're not going to be able to avoid it, is what I'm saying. It's going to come to you. And I think you're going to be wildly successful in whatever angles you decide to go down. So again, whether you're in the public eye or not, you're still going to be in a leadership role at some point in the people that work for you or that you have business relationships with. Even in that aspect, there's going to be points of criticism. There's going to be points of disagreement. So learning how to navigate those conversations now and being prepared for them is, again, my life's advice for anybody that's growing their business. So,
I'm not crazy. One thing. Audrey says, it's about Zenny's walk time, but we promise we'll sit her down and make her watch this episode. Seems like the perfect show curated for her to behave better. Not ladylike. Hey, Audrey, how are you? Thank you for tuning in.
I send good training vibes through cyberspace here for good behavior.
What did you want to say?
I can't remember.
Oh.
No, I can remember. So from when he's a child.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here. No, don't tell. No.
I sorry, but I just pound this in his head. And he chose me as a father to have me do this because I believe children choose their parents. If you're in your truth, no one can harm you.
Mm-hmm.
And when the criticism comes, you look at it, you see if any aspect of it resonates with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because, there's some truth in everything.
Yep.
And you only pick up the part that resonates with you. And you try and leave your ego and emotions out of this. Yep. And like we were saying earlier about relationships, maybe that person's in your life just to share that criticism, and then that person will leave. So it's not like you need to attach, change things, and be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Just trust in yourself enough that you don't have to be a people pleaser, and all the people that relate to you will find you. It's if you're projecting a particular truth, then the truth will come back to you. And the people who ascribe to that truth will come to you. Mm-hmm. So you can either people please and grab your whole life, or, it'll all just come to you. It's the law of attraction. If you're in your truth and you put that truth out,
100%,
the universe will bring all those people to you like you've experienced now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Being in your truth, even that 10% doesn't really matter, but they're there maybe for something that you need to look at.
Yeah. And just to expand further on that thought, that old saying, surround yourself with good people. But if you're in your truth and you're just trying to put good into the universe, you don't have to try hard for those people to surround you. They're going to come naturally. It just and it just resonates so much with me now because I just came back from Chicago from my conference and just seeing so many. It's this 4th year for the conference, and it's just being surrounded by so many of the same people that have just really grown into this community of just kindness and empathy and compassion for each other. And that's the such a repeated comment I get is that we love this conference because it's so different than anything else, where there's very little conflict. We feel comfortable, we feel safe, we feel appreciated, we feel like we're heard, with each other in this space. Of over 300 attendees in person, and thousands online. It's just it's the again, I didn't try to necessarily specifically create that. It's just, again, me being truthful, and the what I put myself out there, and my truth is just, that kindness, empathy, and caring and compassion are always the message I send home to, you'll hear me say it constantly, but that's what I'm putting out there as me, and then people will gravitate naturally to that.
But it's not only what you say, it's what you feel
Yes.
when you're with you. You're not just saying those words. You are those words, and you vibrate those words.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
So whatever happened to the restaurant?
Well, I'm really glad I didn't get into that, because anybody who is in the restaurant business knows how much work that takes. I wanted to open a sushi restaurant, a Japanese restaurant, and this was before all the fusion ones. Before it was just like Oki's kind of style, traditional Japanese.
Right.
Before like Tao and all these, P.F. Chang's, all these other. That was my idea back then. I'm like, oh, I know about it, other cuisines and Japanese food. Let's combine them. So that was actually what I wanted to do it, but I'm really glad I didn't, because it is grueling, very hard, difficult work, and one of the least successful types of businesses you can get into. You see many restaurants fail. So
90% of them.
Happy I didn't get into that. Not that. And people that are passionate about restaurants, it's I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but for me, it just wasn't the best step. I'm really glad I did that, because now I have the luxury of travel, time, and being able to do what I want to do and not be in a kitchen somewhere or just in the front of house somewhere, right?
What did you learn from being a single dad? Because I hear a lot of people who were single moms.
Yeah.
However you want to look at that. I look at it as unfortunately. But I don't hear a lot about single dads.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was tough. It was really hard, and mostly because my first son didn't have really a mom. So, I mean, that's a travesty for any child, but is obviously for my son, it's very difficult. So, I think it helped me learn empathy as well, because you have the motherly side, you have the fatherly side, you kind of have roles that play into raising a child, and so I had to learn that side technically, because he was so young too, 2 years old. Now if he was like 16, it's different if you split up or something like that, but he was 2 years old and his mom completely vanished, disappeared from the whole picture. She kind of took off. She had some mental health issues, but so it kind of left me to take on both roles. So if I was saying I learned anything, it's that empathy and the appreciation for all the moms out there too, and all of the struggles they have to go through with everything from
Amazing.
the clothes ready, doing all of those things that we often take for granted. I had to learn all of those things as well as working. I had an incredible nanny though. This girl Courtney, she's a teacher now, but she really was my lifesaver, because she would watch him 2 or 3 days, sometimes straight through. Like I would be working so much that sometimes he would just stay with her. So she was a true lifesaver. But yeah, I would say that and responsibility. Responsibility, because when you're in your early 20s, you kind of have luxury to do things. I can go travel, I can go work this job, I can explore this business, I can do this or that, I can go party or whatever you do when you're in your early 20s, right? But none of that was on the plate for me. It was, I got a responsibility here, I got to work my butt off, and I did. I was working 2 jobs sometimes. I was really, working hard at the time. And so I always had a pretty decent work ethic, but let me tell you, that was my dad's side. My dad I think he missed 1 day of work.
Yeah.
1 day of work in like 40 years,
Right.
because he was deathly ill. But that was the 1 day he missed. So he passed that work ethic on to me. And so but I doubled down on that. I should have not been at work some days because I was just really sick, but I still went in. And I think that also from a business standpoint, from the entrepreneurial standpoint, it built resiliency in people, or it built resiliency in me. So because I had that responsibility, which then made me work, which then taught me like, people complain about, I had to work 8 hours today. I'm like, I wish when I was that age, or I have to work 3 days this week. Here, that's the unfortunate thing. I'm sure you see it too, Julie, sometimes in the generation now, they're like, that kind of work ethic is really kind of gone to the wayside. And
and can't handle it,
yeah.
even the 3 days they were there.
yeah.
And it's not their fault.
Right.
When I tap you, it means I'm dying to ask a question. You can do that back to me. But what was your headspace like when your wife left? If you're comfortable.
Yeah,
going there.
I think I was actually kind of glad because she was not a good mom, kind of abusive. She had, good mental health issues, some drug issues. I was a young kid at the time, didn't know any better. So my headspace was kind of like, okay, right, see you later.
This is a good thing.
Yeah. So when I had the opportunity to actually file for sole custody, I did all of that myself. I did all the research. I was my own lawyer. And unfortunately, she didn't show up to court, which I didn't expect her to. So it was actually quite easy for me to get sole custody of him at such a young age. Usually it's a big legal battle,
huge.
for that kind of thing. Even dual custody for a father is
It's usually.
difficult.
Does the wife still usually have
The
precedent?
Yeah, the courts are very sided towards the child staying with the mom most of the time. So most fathers have to really struggle to get any kind of visitation sometimes, depending on the situation, of course. It depends on the unique aspects of a case. But me, it was easy. I don't know. I got lucky in the sense of she didn't show up. I had the right clerk at the court. That was helpful in filling out the right paperwork, and yeah. So my headspace, actually, it felt kind of nice not to have to worry about that additional stressor. So yeah, it was a little different than your traditional, like somebody married for a long time, and there was some mutual love for each other, that kind of thing, and this was totally different. So,
And did that relationship teach you any principles that you took on to use for the rest of your life?
oh yeah, it just taught me how to be much more careful about what kind of relationships I had with women. But
Did you hear that?
yeah, you have to be selective, and it's definitely
You don't go to that table as a beggar.
no.
You got to go to that table as someone that's totally whole.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking to make yourself whole
Yeah,
through someone else, it's not going to happen.
yeah. It's
But it seems like everyone tries it.
yeah. Well, when you're young, you don't. It's life lessons, right? You don't
Right.
like when you're in your 20s. You don't. That's so different.
No judging. You're sitting where you are today because of all the good and bad that happened in your life.
Mhm.
So you don't nitpick and judge yourself or have regret
Yeah.
or say, I should have done this. It's all of that. Think of it collectively
Yeah.
has brought you to this very happy place.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important because we could always go back and have regrets. Everybody could have a regret.
Everyone.
And we can dwell on it and think about it and let us get us down. But, one of the best things you can do is just think about the positives that come out of all of those awful situations and what you learn from them and the resilience it builds and the skills it gives you to do other things in life much better than if you didn't have that experience.
Do you have regrets?
Oh, yeah. In the sense of, I think about them, I realize them, but I don't dwell on them. You can't, because if you do, it'll just continue to eat you up inside, right? So it's, I think it's important to recognize when we've made mistakes and we've missed opportunities to teach us a lesson later on about how to, if we come across a similar situation, how to navigate that. So, because if you do the opposite and don't think about those things, you're just going to go through life like continuing to make the same mistakes, right? Or just go through life being too cocky, like, nothing can faze me. I'm the best of this and that, so Yeah.
Good to have both. That's a good lesson.
Yeah.
So let's set the stage. So imagine I'm Jimmy Kimmel or
Mm-hmm.
Jay Leno or whatever, and we're in a much bigger studio, and the music starts rolling, and out comes two very aggressive dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and now I say, "Do your magic stuff." What would you do to make those dogs calm down, and maybe to prevent? So that question, and the
Mhm.
other question would be, if I'm walking down the street one day and some dog comes running at me, what do you do?
First thing you do is don't run.
Okay.
Because once you start running or moving, the more you move with a dog that's going to bite you, the more they're going to come after you. So the best thing you can actually do is try to be as still as possible and not do anything that's confrontational. Because people are like, oh, just stare the dog down in the eyes and you'll be the more dominant one, all this kind of
That's
nonsense.
the worst thing.
Yeah, that's
Don't
the most
look 'em in the eye.
confrontational thing you
Right.
can do. So I would probably look on Jimmy's desk to see if he's got any food because that's often what I use. Most dogs, the fastest way to build a relationship is food. You just toss them treats or whatever.
Humans.
It's like this.
Humans too.
It's like this. It's not like there's some secret energy we put out in the universe and what we see on TV. And that's the issue with TV shows is that they want to make it look magical, like this person's special, like they do something to the dog and the dog stops. And sometimes that works because the dog's just afraid of you, or you're doing things that threaten the dog with that behavior, or staring the dog, or like taking a confrontational stance. But like we were talking about before, that can go sideways really quickly. So again, I'm just going to, if it was two dogs brought out, I'd be like, okay, let's see if I can get these dogs to trust me. So it's not made for TV. And I tell people that all the time. Really good training should be like watching paint dry. It's not going to make for a great TV show. And that's why you don't see TV shows often on the really good training techniques, because it takes time, it takes patience, it takes food, it takes, stuff that's probably boring to the general public, and often is, because it's not exciting, made for TV kind of stuff, whereas you're pinning the dog down or dominating them or doing physical restraint or force. So, because that's the best way to get bitten. So that's what I would do. I would, watch my own body language, take my time, use some food. It would take more than the 5-minute segment probably, or 3-minute segment that the dogs were there. But in a pinch, you could still kind of get them to warm up. A lot of dogs can. Sometimes I go to some houses and you go and then there's like, my dog's so aggressive, nobody can come over, and like nobody's been over for years. What are you gonna do? And I go and I've got a few hot dogs cut up with me, and a few hot dogs. Not hand feeding, by the way. Don't do that. It's a good way to get bitten. I'm tossing, like if let's say from 10 feet away, I'll toss. And usually there's a fence or the dog's on a leash or something to protect me, but I'll toss treats, and it's slightly actually behind the dog because that gets them to move away slightly, and because they go for the hot dog, and then they can decide if they want to come back. And sometimes within 3 or 4 repetitions, dogs are like, I love this guy. What's better than this guy? I've never had hot dogs. I've never had a stranger come over and give hot dogs. The only time strangers have come over, I've barked at them and they ran away or moved off property, like the UPS driver or something like that. So they've learned it works. They're like, the best way for me to deal with my fear is to just bark and they'll go away. So that's what works for the dog or the animal. Just like, again, going back, if I broke in your house, I'm going to break out that bat. That's what works. But what if I started coming in and throwing bundles of $100 bills at you? And I just kept doing that. Pretty soon, after a few days, you're going to be like, this guy's actually pretty cool. Come on in. When are you going to come over for a beer? That's how you change behavior in dogs. So I do that all the time with dogs, and most dogs are going to change. Now, some dogs don't take food because they're either too stressed or too fearful. And in some very rare cases, they've been trained not to take food. And so there's different approaches for that. But most dogs, if you just use food or something that helps them feel safer. Sometimes it's going to be play. Sometimes it's going to be toys. Sometimes it's going to just be your affection. All depends on the dog, but that's the secret to it. And it's really not a secret. I mean, it's
well, you must be really intuitive to figure out what you're going to use.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with experience. You kind of read the dog, see what works, and you have your different techniques and things. But it's most people can get away with it. I mean, I've taught thousands of clients to just say, well, Uncle Bob's coming over, so have him bring some food. I'll show you the technique. So there's techniques and safety things. You're not just going to let the dog run up to Uncle Bob, but, Uncle Bob can come in, and if hot dogs happen or something the dog likes when Uncle Bob shows up, that's classical conditioning. It's how slot machines work really well. Those bells on the slot machine, right? If we keep putting quarters in and something, and then you hear that sound, that class, what does that sound? That casino, like slot machine going off, predicts something good's about to happen. So that's all you do with dogs. Is just if something good happens when Uncle Bob comes over, it suddenly Uncle Bob's not a bad thing. He's actually a really good thing. And the dog's like, I love this when this guy comes over. And you can do that with almost anything. You know, the dog doesn't like having their ears cleaned, or they don't like other dogs, for instance, all that stuff. If you just pair it with good things happening, and there's obviously nuances to the techniques, but that's the concept. If you do that and you just rinse and repeat, that's just behavior 101, right? It
Pavlov.
works. Exactly. It works with humans, works with dogs. We're subject to it all the time. The little emoticons or likes on Facebook or whatever. Same principle, right? It just keeps us going back. We decide what we like and what we don't. If we have lots of likes or somebody punishing us on social media, we're less likely to go back, right? We're more to get angry and frustrated with that versus if we got lots of likes and attention, positive reinforcement changes behavior.
You saying this is making me realize two things. Not that finger. The the most important, a lot of to initiate relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best things I've found to do is offer them whenever you're eating. A. B. I'll make sure I carry a hot dog in my back pocket if I'm ever
Yes.
going anywhere.
Yep.
Whether,
Yep.
But here's the question now. Our dogs, both of them, hate having us clip their fingernails.
Mm-hmm.
We know a lot of people who the dog hates having them clip their
Yeah.
fingernails.
Yeah.
Why? Because then they go to the vet,
Mm-hmm.
no problem.
No problem.
Do you like going to the dentist?
I don't like it, but I don't squeal.
You deal with it, right?
Right.
Deal with it. Same thing for dogs having their nails trimmed. No dog on the planet is like, I love having, well, at least I haven't met one, but no dog's like, I love having my nails trimmed. They kind of tolerate it, right? So what I do with clients that have issues with their dogs having nails trimmed is let's pair it with something good. Now, if I sent you to the dentist and you're like, every time the dentist puts their drill, whatever in your mouth, they're going to give you $100 right after they do that. And they're going to keep doing that. Every time they leave out your mouth, there comes another $100. Most people, our kid, he's like the anti-dentist thing, but like here's a piece of candy. Every single time I touch your mouth, are you more likely to go back to the dentist then? Even though if you don't like it, you're still more likely to go back to that experience because it predicted something good's going to happen for you. So I've got to figure out what that dog likes or what that person likes. So some grown person may not like candy, but they might like those $100 bills, or they might like, seeing their favorite TV show or meeting whatever. So it's all figuring out what that person or dog likes and pairing it with good things happening. So nail trims are exactly the same. I'm going to work on it. Now, let's say you were deathly afraid of the dentist, like
Some
kind
people
of
have
like
actual phobias.
needing like sedation, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's going to be a much more gradual approach, so that one piece of candy may not make any difference, or the amount of money may not make any difference for some people. So those dogs might happen too, where they get very aggressive, or they're like, last time you cut my nail, you actually hit the quick, or where it started bleeding, and it was a very awful experience. So you have to take a much gradual approach, and it can be as gradual as like, I buy a new pair of nail trimmers, we show it to the dog from 100 feet away, and we pair that with something good happening. So it's just like the person pulling up in the parking lot of the dentist office, and we're pairing that with gradual exposure. And that's an extreme example, but that's the approach I may need to take in some cases. So I don't want to make it seem like it's really easy to get most dogs to like nail trims or tolerate them, because there are extreme cases like that where dogs just like, I don't care what you give me. So it's a much more gradual procedure. So yeah, so that's how I would kind of work with dogs with nail trims. And you might even switch the technique. Like maybe I don't need to do a drill into your tooth. Maybe there's some other technique. So like instead of trimming the nails rather with a nail clipper, maybe we can use a Dremel, or maybe they actually have these scratch boards now where the dog can actually kind of file down their own nails. So you teach the dog, scratch the board, and it actually files down their nails. And that's when you look at dogs out in nature and like places where there's lots of concrete, you don't actually have to trim their nails because the surface does it for them. So it's the same principle. It's like dremeling their own nails. And you could teach a dog. Dogs learn high five, right? They, give me paw or high five. Dogs know that little trick. That's how you teach them on the nail board. And they just like start to do this, and then there's a treat for you after you did that. do this a little bit more. There's a treat for you after you gave it a little more. And so soon some dogs are like, oh, I can totally get this. And next thing you know, they're filing down their own nails. You don't have to trim, and they love that because they're getting food or whatever they like for it. So
Trim board.
Trim board.
Trim board.
But my only
I
thought
mean-
with that is, what about the hind legs?
that's a little more difficult. You can still do the trim board, but usually that's going to require Dremel or nail trimmer or vet visit. And to answer that question, sometimes the vet visit, it's because vets or people that are experienced handling animals are much more matter of fact. So
Right,
if I came
right.
over to you, hey, Julius, I'm going to play dentist for the day. Get this drill. Do you trust me coming over here? And I'm going to move around. Open wide. And like I do things kind of awkward. That's the equivalent. A veterinarian or true dentist is going to be like, come here and just let me get it done. I'm going to do it quick and efficiently. And so the dogs are much more likely to kind of be trusting that situation, or they just kind of get used to it. They're like, okay, just get it over with. I'll deal with it because you know what you're doing. And so I often see that. Like the dogs do really well at the groomers or the vets, but they're terrible with their owners because the owners have done things incorrectly with it. So,
All right, so a way out there question.
mm-hmm.
Do the dogs ever talk to you? Like, do you ever pick up? Do you sense a message, Dr. Doolittle?
Dogs talking to us all the time when you think about it, and they do it through body language and their expressions. I mean,
But do you ever hear like something in your head, like a dog will say, "Hey, Michael"?
I think that's a good question, but I think the answer is yes, because I think when you start to read dogs so well, you see body language, you see
If you're
behavior,
nuts.
you see communication, you're translating for them, right? And that's often my job. I have to explain. I have to help my clients understand what the dog is saying with the subtle communication. They see the growl. Most people can see barking, biting behaviors, but they don't see things like tongue flicks or what's called the whale eye when they look away, or the subtle stress signals. And even when you get into even more deeply, even the trainers that I know, professional trainers I teach, the most subtle things to it could be a respiration rate change or seeing a whisker flare or something like that can all indicate communication or what the dog is kind of thinking. We don't know necessarily what they're thinking, of course, but it gives you an insight into how that dog might be feeling or what behavior might come next, like biting. So to avoid dog bites, the best thing you do is learn how to read dogs and what comes before dog bites. So just like a growl becomes before a bite, there's much more subtle signals. A lot of dogs will do this. And as soon as that mouth closes and they stop breathing for a second, I'm like, oh, that's my big cue. I've got to move away if I see that in a dog that's showing other signals, subtle stress signals, like their mouth is closed or their whiskers are slightly flared or their ears are positioned in a certain way. Those subtle signals, it takes time to learn those things because you got to keep watching dogs. It's that 10,000 hours of observation kind of rule, right? But once you start to see those things, you can't unsee them, right? Just like a poker tell.
It's innate.
Communication with people, facial expressions, body language, and dogs, let's face it, they communicate solely through not language. They're speaking through their body language and other signals. So we have to communicate that way with them. That's why they're so good at seeing our expressions. They're so intuitive about just like if I do this, they see that a mile away,
Why is it when you talk to a dog, the ears come up and
The head tilt.
the head tilts
Yeah.
and the eyes like,
If you say something
I
like,
think that is one of the cutest things for dogs.
Yeah. That's the human equivalent of like, huh? What'd you say? Huh? Like, what do you mean? Like that, it's the human equivalent. They just don't, they're trying to process what we're doing or saying. They don't understand exactly. Try that sometimes. Like talk to your dog and then throw in a word that they know. Like, hey, what are you doing? Treat and like, and they'll hear that one thing, and you'll often see like that. And then when they hear that one cue word or that note that they know, you'll often see it change quickly. Oh, I know what that means.
Out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to go out?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like the dance starts and then they get crazy in the ears, the whole thing.
Yeah.
so you're telling me the only thing I would need to know to be a good dog trainer is hot dogs and kind of pay attention to the dog's behavior and just start by feeding the dog.
It's a good start.
Okay.
It's like your first business course in school, right? You'll get a good start, good foundation aspect. Yeah.
But what makes the really good dog trainers
Right. I
different
was
from
just
the-
going to say, when you see someone initially, like, I always say, well, everyone could be a healer or everyone could read
Mm-hmm.
cards or whatever, or a good poker player. But then there are the gifted people.
Yeah. I think the number one skill you can have is, again, it's the observation of
Right.
their body language and being able to interpret what they're doing and kind of almost reading what they might do next. That's the most foundational skill for any trainer, really, because we have to also know when we're doing something wrong and they're uncomfortable with it, and recognizing that, because that unfortunately goes missing a lot out there. So, and then good timing, and mechanics. Just because it is a mechanical skill, sort of like learning how to dance. So you have people that can dance really well and people that don't have the rhythm. It's kind of the same with dogs in the training aspect. Now, what I do is a little different. If you're doing things like agility training or training tricks for movies or things like that, it's much different. It's a much more mechanical, skilled in face, like how you're working with the dog, how you're moving, what you're asking them to do versus what I'm doing. I just want the dogs not to bite anybody. So I'm slightly different. I'm much more on the behavioral aspect versus the training aspect, if that makes sense. And so, but those really good trainers, top level, like competition trainers, their skills of good timing and mechanics and what they're doing with body language, because they're like, for instance, they might be working with their dog in agility, and all it is to get the dog to turn left, it might be just a shoulder shift, and they recognize that, and their dog recognizes that, and they know that any move they make, their dog might read it wrong. So they might do a shoulder shift, but they also do this at the same time. Dog's like, what does that mean? I only understand the shoulder shift. So good body language, good mechanics from the person too can be very important. So yeah, timing, something called rate of reinforcement, how fast you are to get the dog, the reinforcer, how many reinforcers, it all starts to get up. So the best trainers you see out there have that down to a science. Yeah.
And what about the flip side? Like learning about how to read the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Has having to learn about that taught you anything about how the dog reads us and how we can kind of read us, humans reading each other, our body language?
So what's the question?
What have you learned from dealing with dogs about how humans use body language to communicate? I guess that's a better way to articulate.
Right. So that was the question I wanted to ask before.
Mm-hmm.
Your awareness level, did that come from your awareness level with humans and then you went to dogs, or did it go from dogs to humans?
That's such a good question. You know why? Because I had to learn empathy. I had to learn reading facial expressions because I was terrible about it. And when I say terrible, I could not, like, I was the guy at the funeral, like, or wake. I would be like, you go through the line and you don't know what to, I wouldn't know what to say. And I would just be like, I couldn't tell if the person was upset or like, I just couldn't read the expression. So I'd be like, congratulations, I just was so socially awkward, and so I had to learn the empathy side of things and learning how to read body language. So it was actually for me an experience of the journey of like learning this is what people do when they're upset about something, when they're happy about something, or where they're being sarcastic or they're being serious. Like I had a tough time reading that as a kid. And again, I think it was because of my culture, and let's face it, Japanese people aren't very like huggy, kind of feeling warm. Like I learned it from the Italian folks in my town. They were very expressive, very warm, right? Much different. So that actually was very helpful in that aspect. But then it taught me like, hey, reading people is important, and so reading dogs must be important as well. And so it was not an intuitive skill, but it came along as I went along. And I think once you start focusing on something, you really just go all in with it. So same thing with dogs. It just kind of went like all in and just learned as much as I could about it. Right. And I love playing poker too. So I love that aspect, just trying to read people when they're being truthful or not. It's a fun thing, It's fun, but it's also useful. Yeah.
Huh. Have dogs ever fooled you?
Yeah, that German Shepherd. A good poker face. Yeah, sometimes, because some dogs can do what's called conflicted behavior. They, when people think of something that's a human or a dog that's fearful, right, exhibiting fear, we kind of just think of that one emotion. So when we think of somebody that's a human that's fearful, what do? They're like, they do certain things, but what if that human's like, and so they're conflicted. They go from, I want to say hello to this person, I kind of want to say hi, but I also am a little bit afraid. So they go back and forth between those emotions, and that's where it can get tricky, especially when you have a dog that is of a breed that protects people or property. Typically, again, not all dogs in a particular breed are going to do that, but let's say you have a Belgian Malinois, for instance. They're typically bred to protect people or property or things. And you get a dog that's super under-socialized, so it's also fearful. So you have a Belgian Malinois that's fearful, and they also remember at around 2 years of age, they're like, wait a second, I'm supposed to protect people too. And so you see the aggressive responses come out, but they're also fearful. So you see this vacillation of emotions, and that can fool you. Because sometimes I'll go in, all right, I'm going to help your dog feel less fearful, be okay with people. And then you build this really confident dog that's like, all right, I feel much better about things. I can trust this person, I can trust that person, but wait a second. I'm a Belgian Malinois. That's right. I'm supposed to protect people. So now you have this dog that's really confident, and we forgot to work on that side of the thing too. So it can get tricky. The nuances and emotions are sometimes difficult to assess in real time until you really get to know the dog. So it can fool you because it looks like that dog's friendly, but then they're not, because they're actually fearful. So
How do you help a dog overcome fear? Is that what you were going to ask? Or no? Never mind.
No.
Just like
I'm
people,
laughing.
you just have to help
Just
them
like
feel
people.
better about what they're fearful about. So if somebody's got a fear of heights or a fear of clowns or spiders, a lot of people actually never work on that, getting over that fear. Some people do, of course. They get over their fear of
I
something.
still don't like clowns.
Yeah, but it's not something you necessarily would have to work on to, because we're not running around and seeing clowns all day long. But with
Hopefully
dogs,
not.
right? Let's say a dog is afraid of people. We have to help them because they're going to have a tough life, because people everywhere. Or a dog that's afraid of garbage cans. That's another weird one. But yeah, we have cases where dogs are deathly afraid of garbage cans because of maybe it's like a windy day, it fell next to them or something.
Oh.
And then on garbage day, that could be a nightmare. Think about it for some dogs. So we just have to help them feel better about that particular stimulus. And you guys now probably know a little bit about how I work with that, right? If a dog's afraid of garbage cans, what am I going to do? I'm going to help them feel safer and paired with good things happening. Garbage day also is hot dog day. And guess what? A lot of dogs were like, I love garbage day because that is when all the hot dogs happen. Classical conditioning. The technical term, it's classical counter conditioning. So we're countering what the dog has a fear of. But
So just do the same thing with humans who are afraid.
Wait,
of
did
stuff.
you like clowns?
I'm okay with clowns.
Okay.
I'm not like, it's not something, I'm not going to a circus anytime soon, but
Have I ever seen a clown? I have no
Yes.
recollection of having ever seen a clown.
Let me tell you.
My brain was just like, Alt delete,
you're
bye.
not missing anything,
Yeah.
Julius, let me tell you.
We were
No offense to any clowns out there, but
we were visiting Grandma and Grandpa in Rhode Island, and Grandpa took you to. I mean, you were in his arms, so that's how small you were. The Shriners Circus, because I'm not a circus person, so I wouldn't take him because I don't like animals in cages, and
yeah.
I don't like animals doing tricks.
Right.
It just doesn't
Yeah.
feel cool to me. So Grandpa's all excited because he loves circuses and he wants to take you. We're walking in. This clown had his back to us, walking backwards out, and became startled when you and Grandpa, I didn't know what happened because you never really screamed or cried as a kid. All of a sudden, you were hysterical because this clown, when he tripped and turned around, was right in your face. And that was really scary. So we had to take you out, calm you down, and then
we might have some repressed memories here.
Yeah. I don't know.
Someday when you see the next clown, it might all come rolling back.
I'll be in a trance. And I'll see we're going to get the clown haters in the comments of this video. Clowns are the best.
We have nothing
Hashtag
against-
save the clowns.
I have nothing against clowns. I think they
Yeah.
bring a lot of happiness and make people smile. Just for me, they didn't do that.
Yeah, but fear is a good thing, though. Also, we need fear. If not, we're not going to survive long because fear keeps us safe. From certain things and threats and things that could kill us. So, fear is actually a normal response for all mammals. If we didn't, then we'd be dead. So it's actually, that's important to note when I'm talking to clients, is that your dog should be fearful of some things. Just the level of fear they're experiencing at the moment is not desirable. And then we have irrational fears too, like being fearful of a clown, for instance, is technically what we would consider irrational because it doesn't make sense. I mean, unless something really bad happened with a clown, but it's an odd fear, right? And even spiders, yes, we should be afraid of some spiders because they can hurt us, so they can be poisonous, but vast majority of spiders, it actually is funny because there's something called flooding or behavioral flooding. It's when, and the human equivalent is if you are afraid of spiders, I just say deal with it, dump a bucket of spiders over your head. That's flooding, and it may work with some people, but it oftentimes has the effect of what's called sensitizing the person or animal to that. And so I went to I've never really liked spiders. I'm not like deathly afraid of them, but I don't go near them. I'm not like or I don't. So and critters,
Either just Julius,
like tiny insect
spiders.
critters, like that kind of stuff, like those like scorpions, things that we want to avoid naturally. So I went to Costa Rica last year, and it was flooding technically, but I fortunately got desensitized. And it's amazing the change that kind of experience can make. Because if you've ever been to have you been to Costa Rica?
No.
If you have an issue with insects, do not go there because they are everywhere. And we stayed at this beautiful eco lodge in the south of Costa Rica, gorgeous place, but out in the middle of the jungle. Really nice high end eco lodge, but so our like cabin. Beautiful. I mean, gorgeous place right on the ocean, like monkeys right outside your hotel room, parrots just flying down. I mean, you couldn't picture a better, like, if you want experience of nature, but you also got the bugs. So these huge cockroaches that live there, and they're just like, you pick up like a picture off the wall, they all come spilling out. And at first you're like, this is like an Indiana Jones movie. You're like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. But suddenly I just just got used to them. Like, all right, it's either sink or swim. They're here. And now when I got back to the States, I was just like, I see anything, like it's no big deal. Like spiders, just like, I kind of like pick it up and I help it outside so I don't have to kill it. And it's just that kind of mentality. And even a scorpion, there was a scorpion and, they're very common there. And you have to like shake out your shoes just to be sure you don't like put your foot in and step on a scorpion. But the next hotel, we stayed at a couple of hotels, and the next hotel we stayed at, there was a big scorpion in the shower. And if I saw that here in the States, everybody would.
You're freak.
Most people are like, ah. But there I was just like, oh, scorpion. So I got a little thing, and I got my glass, I got the scorpion out of the shower, brought it outside, and just brought it to like save the thing from getting drowned in the shower. And I would have never, ever even thought about doing that before I went there. But it was just that process of just desensitization. I'm like, bugs are here, they're part of life, they're everywhere, and that's so fear again keeps you safe, but then you develop a rational part of it. So that's what happened to me. And that can happen with dogs too. Some dogs get over things very quickly, but I would never flood a dog like that. It's always through
That
gradual.
might be too much.
Yeah, like
because they can't make the choice like we can of saying I want out. I want to get out of this situation. They can't tell us all the time.
I mean, I'm constantly picking up spiders and putting them out, and it seems like all we do here is clean spider poop. And I've never. I mean, I lived in a high-rise my whole life, so this is like whoa. But he does not like spiders.
I'm better now, but I do not like them.
And neither does my son.
No.
What is it with spiders?
What is it with spiders with these kids? It's the Harry Potter movies.
Probably because there's just so few of them.
No, but the Harry Potter movies like make you like spiders. Like I think that's supposed to like, I don't know. It's supposed to like make you less fearful. Like Aragog is this huge spider, but she's very nice, sort of, and all her little spiders are very nice, sort of. I don't know. It's
But I
strange.
don't know if I could take the flooding of spiders.
That's
Like
No.
I'm
That's
okay
easy.
with
Yeah, most
One.
people would not do well with
yeah, if you dumped a
Yeah.
bunch of spiders on my head, I mean that would.
Yeah.
So we had a place in Naples, Florida, and they had the big banana spiders. And I never saw one in the house. But you'd see them outside a lot. So it was kind of a non-event.
Yeah.
Until one of them was crawling up my back one day. It was like, oh my God, what's this thing? What's it going to do? And I'd taken a million pictures of them.
payback. It didn't want to be in the picture, or
Exactly.
it wanted a royalty.
But I got over it. Banana spiders.
So, do you know what your purpose in life is? Can you articulate it? That's really random, but that just popped into my head a few minutes ago because the precursor to that is, do you feel fulfilled?
That is a deep and good question to ask, definitely, because it's one I would love to hear the insight of everybody I meet. You know what they think they're there for. But for me, it's dogs.
Note, ask all guests.
Yes.
Do they
We
think-
already
Good
do.
question. Yeah,
Yeah.
because but for me, it's to help dogs and the people that they're with. You know, it's because dogs are so meaningful to so many people's lives, much more so than so many other things that we can get into. And there's not that there's nothing important with all the other careers paths we can take, but what better career I could get into or journey I can get into than to help a sentient being that has fear or frustration or anxiety or has needs to feel better in the world, and to help them, which then in turn helps the people they're with. So and to be able to do it on such a big scale now is it's the rewarding aspect. So very fulfilling, what I do now, very fulfilling, and being fortunate to be able to do it in the way I can do it now is not have to really consider it work, and not have to work as much either, which is kind of the extra benefit of it. I've finally positioned myself in a way where, I don't have to work sometimes, or I can decide when I want to work, and the freedom of time is one of the most significant values you can go for in life, because once you have that, then you can do whatever you please in the sense of help, whatever you want to do in terms of helping people or helping yourself or whatever it is you want to do. That luxury of time, you can't, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how much money you are. If you don't have time, you're not free. So that's, fulfillment is definitely there now. And it's just come recently, it's taken some time to get to this space, but yeah.
I was going to ask next, what's next for you
But you
Yeah.
overcame an awful lot
to get there?
to get there.
Yeah.
Which
I
will,
will say.
for those of you tuning in live, the full episode from our conversation, we've been talking to Mike, who's been very gracious with his time for a couple hours prior to this. That will be released soon, so stay tuned for that.
So,
Go ahead. Then I've got to ask the two trademark
Yes,
questions,
yes.
and we have to wrap up. Believe it or not, it's been 3 hours.
Really? Wow. Time
Yeah,
flies.
it's 'cause
Time
he's
flies
talking
with good
with-
conversation.
exactly.
Yeah.
So many people I meet say, I have two things. The first one is, I like dogs so much better than humans. I mean, I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
When I say that to you, what pops into your head?
Because dogs don't let us down. Humans can. And humans often do. The humans in our lives can do things to us or sometimes focus on themselves a little bit too much. And dogs are the complete opposite when you think about it. Most of them are just happy with whatever. And they're so tolerant when you think about it. All the things we do as humans that can ruin their day, or stupid human stuff that when we don't understand dog behavior or we do things to punish them that that they don't understand why they're being punished sometimes, and they're so forgiving of that. This quick side statistic too is that the number of dogs on this planet, the number of dog bites that happen in comparison to the number of dogs, they could easily do much more damage, much more bites, and the level of biting they're at. So if they wanted to, they could easily, cause great harm to so many of us. But the vast majority of dogs on this planet, billions of dogs on this planet, do not bite people. It's such a small statistic. And here's a fun fact. Well, not a fun fact, but a morbid fact, I guess, in a way, is that balloons and slippers are more dangerous than dogs. Balloons and slippers kill more people statistically every year than dogs do. So that's a little consideration about how much dogs are tolerant of us.
Birthday balloons or big balloons you ride in?
Don't people and they blow the balloon up and then they actually inhale, it blows up dangerously. It's mostly kids, unfortunately, it happens to, but they choke on it, or it's a choking hazard. 5-gallon buckets, more dangerous than dogs, statistically.
And slippers, people slip?
Yep. They slip, they fall, they break their neck, that kind of stuff. There's actually a book with that title by Janice Bradley. Dogs bite, but balloons and slippers are more dangerous, because this is hysteria. When a dog kills somebody, it makes all immediate, oh my gosh, dog's dangerous. And everybody's like, oh, pit bulls are terrible, or they blame some breed or something like that. When even then, statistically, people can't identify the breed. They just call it a pit bull, but 90% of the time it's not. So, or that's not an exact figure, but a lot of times it's not the pit bull. So it's just this hysteria. But that just, again, dogs are so tolerant of us. So when people say they like dogs more than people, I get why, because they don't let us down.
Unconditional love,
yeah,
it seems.
Yep.
We have a tradition on this show, or do you have something you want?
I just said
one more thing. That's
one
why
more
I
thing.
was.
Oh my God. So in life,
Editor, please put the Apple loading icon on his head.
That would be good.
so many people I meet always seem to be looking. Most of the time, they don't even know what they're looking for. And then I meet so many successful people. And I always ask them this question: how much did luck play in your success? What role did luck play in your success?
I think a lot, because
A lot.
I do believe in luck. I do believe in, because I play poker, so we get dealt hands. We get dealt hands that, and then in ways that don't seem logical, right? And so you do have to attribute it to something, and it's completely unscientific, as being science-based. It's strange to hear me talk about luck, but I do think there's something in the universe that brings us good things. So I do think quite a few times in my life have been fortunate where things could have went another way and they didn't, right? You get lucky, the night when I was 16 and driving like a nut job and got a terrible accident and everybody in my car walked away unscathed. That's luck.
That's luck.
That's somebody watching for you. So, yeah, there's moments like that make you realize there's something else out there, not just, the way life is supposed to be sometimes. There's luck there involved. So, yeah.
Okay. That's a very good answer. I like that answer. We have a tradition on this show where the previous guest who was on leaves a question for the upcoming guest, having absolutely no idea who they are. So, Harry, our prior guest's question to you is, have you traveled much? Have you traveled to Russia, China, Thailand, Turkey? Those are some of my favorite places.
Yes, to answer number one. I've traveled quite extensively over the last few years, even a little bit during the pandemic. So yes to answer one, but no to those other four. Come close. I was in Cyprus last year, so that's close to Turkey. But not China, not Russia. And what was the other one?
Thailand.
That's on my bucket list too. But I think the reason why is there's not a lot of dog trainers in those countries you listed. And so my services are not quite as needed yet there.
And the final question we ask is, and it's changed a lot, but basically it's this. If you were giving a college commencement address to your great-great-grandchildren, what would you tell them if they saw this sometime in the future?
I have to go back to my standby, which is treat everybody with kindness, empathy, respect first and foremost, because then it'll just surround you for the rest of your life. So it's the whole address would be about that for sure. Yeah.
Putting it out there.
Yep.
We actually still have 4 minutes, so we've got time. Let's talk about something else in the meantime. I thought that was going to take a lot longer than I thought it would.
Should I think about the question I have to ask the next guest?
You can. Whatever you want it to be.
It was Harry.
You're going to
right?
write it down.
Harry, yes.
Harry.
That was Harry.
He was the one talking about alternative medicine, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So maybe I should piggyback off that. That would be interesting. They're probably like, what is this dog trainer asking that kind of question for? Have you ever... No, that would be too personal, I think.
All right, wait a minute. You can't say it now, though. It has to be a surprise.
Oh, that's
for the
surprise.
audience, too.
Okay.
So you can write it
all
down.
right.
So
I'll
you
think
can do.
about
Do that in a minute. Yeah, you write it down.
But
in the
it'll
book.
probably, it'll be interesting.
So you're a poker player.
Mm-hmm.
When did you learn that?
I've always loved it, like since I was young, just playing a lot of online poker, and then actually supported myself for a while. And when I was working, there was something called poker props, where you like on the online gaming rooms, they would pay you to actually sit at the tables to just fill more table space to get the tables going. They give you a small percentage of the rake, and so I did that. I'd play like 7-8 tables at a time for like hours at a time online, and yeah, it's just, and of course, working at the casino. But when you work at the casino, they don't let you play there. You can't gamble at the casino you
Yeah,
work
no,
at.
I
So
would
you have to go to
imagine.
the other one. It was Richard's Mohican Sun. So, yeah, I did a lot of in-person or table games as well, and I still do. You know, that's what I do for fun, is that take a little time and just go over to Foxwoods. Now I can gamble there because I don't work there anymore, and just play a little poker.
Are you scientific about it?
Do you play the
You
man or
can't-
play
Math
the
helps.
odds?
The math helps, but again, reading people is an important part of it. That's why I love in person more than online, because you can't see people online, but in person, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, just to, you know, and I don't do it now to try to like make any money with it. I just go to have fun, chat
Right.
with some other players at the table and enjoy the experience, but also a little bit. I am competitive, so I will try to win, of course, but you know, it's just for fun. It's a good way to unwind. You know, because when you start thinking about the money side, it doesn't become as fun if you know
No.
have a losing night. So it's just, for me, it's social.
Entertainment.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you deal with a losing? Have you had a losing night? How do you
Of
deal?
course, yeah. Never gamble more than you worry about
Right.
the money. Just
Just
go
be
with
smart.
Yeah, just go with your fun money, and you know, if you lose, you lose. It's just fun. Yeah, yeah.
Losing's
Kind
no
of
fun.
That's the antithetical part of gambling. You know, it's not real. You're not really gambling when you do it that way, right? It's like, you know, true gamblers are gonna. It's a problem. That can be a problem. So
Have you seen a lot of that?
seen people
Oh,
lose
yeah.
significant fortunes over that, and the unfortunate aspect is people start to resort to crime or criminal activity to support their gambling habits, and that's the unfortunate side of seeing that. And of course, all the other bad activities that come along in a casino environment. So that was also helpful, though, for seeing what to avoid doing, to mistakes people can make, because it's easy for anybody to fall in those traps if they have that kind of personality. So you learn, avoid those things, you know, temper, like everything else in life, you know, moderation, so you don't fall into those kind of traps, because wildly successful people you would think would make very good decisions. I mean, business people, you know, think about it. When you're thinking at business, you do things when you have leverage or some way of having a positive outcome. You're at least, but when gambling is statistically, there's no edge on any game. Blackjack being one where you can slightly get odds if you can count cards, or poker, but vast majority of casinos, any business person will tell you it's losing in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love when I
reason
ask
why-
people, how'd you do? Oh, I broke even. And I'm like, every time I ask you how you do, you tell me you broke even. I know, given the casino, you didn't break even.
Yeah.
Just looking at the
Yeah.
physical structure.
Yeah.
So I have one more question, though.
Sure.
Do you believe you choose your path, or do you believe your path is imposed on you?
Both.
I'm.
Both.
That's what I think.
Yeah. I think we try to choose our path, but, the universe also chooses it because it makes total sense when you think about it. So, we are just a product of our environment often and our experiences and our communication with people and what we learn. And that could be different for any person, just like the dogs I work with. You take one dog, and if I take it from the streets of Thailand and I bring it to New York City, two totally different experiences. I can clone a dog, the exact same DNA, everything. Just take two dogs, put them in one environment, one in the other. You're going to get two completely different dogs behaviorally. You might see the same look, but their weights might be different. Even their coat color might start to like all those things start to change based on the environment. So people are no different when you think about it. It's just the products of our culture and our environment.
I constantly say to my sisters, wait a minute, did we grow up in the same family here? Because what I'm remembering and my perspective is the exact opposite of what you're remembering. So it's even, that small unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally agree with the dog analogy.
Yeah.
There's just too much randomness.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with the universe? And then I'll shut this down, I promise.
Or come back.
Yeah, or come back and we could do you have to oh, you have a long ride home.
Yeah, no worries. My relationship with the universe. That's a deep question. I'm not a super spiritual person, or religious, so I don't think about that particular topic too much. But now you got me thinking about it. I think we're not alone. That's one thing. I do think there's other life out there, and I think when we die, we all become back to part of the universe. So, and that's what keeps me from keeping it being a depressing thought, right? So your molecules, your atoms go back out into the universe. They never go away because, law of conservation and energy, and just you become part of the universe. So we're all part of the universe, and
Just get a little shifted.
Yep. We become other things, but that's about as spiritual as I get, I think. That was my parents tried to really raise me Baptist or, in that religion. But as these things go, you change your beliefs. So
This was great. This was so much fun, and I really enjoyed speaking with you. We spoke. Well, we had dinner, but
Yeah.
still, I think we spoke relatively briefly compared to this 3-hour conversation that we've just had, which I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody soon. We'd love to have you back if you're up to it.
I appreciate
talk
it.
about
I had
that.
a lot of fun too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, thanks for
Glad
having
to
me.
hear that. Thank you very much for taking the time to do it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Have a great night, everybody. See you next
Thanks,
week.
guys.